Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we have made good progress on our International Space Station. It definitely needs more work, and there's a couple of things that we need the next flight to bring in addition to the Quest Joint Airlock. Specifically, what we needed to bring is, well, we have repair kits up here, so we could not bring repair kits for these, but we're going to bring them regardless. We need to bring replacement hinges, because these are unmotorized, and we actually do want them to be motorized. So we're going to bring replacement hinges here for all of this, get all of that repaired. I also want to bring a docking port, because this is not really an antenna. This is actually a docking port. So we're going to get that swapped over as well. The Quest Joint Airlock should be relatively small, and it's going to be attaching to the Unity module, so that's going to be a docking port junior that we need to base that off of. So that is absolutely okay. That'll be great, and we'll just get this all set up here as soon as we get loaded in. There we go. So we're going to hop into the VAB here, and we're going to get the Quest Joint Airlock built, and we'll get those parts that we need for continuing maintenance of the station put in. So that'll be great. We're going to load up. It doesn't really matter which variant of the shuttle we go with. We can go with the Z1 truss, and we can eliminate the Z1 truss module. That does not need to be in here. The engine plate does not need to be in here either. So that's fine. We can leave the arm as it is. It's not the greatest, but it'll do. So we're going to need to bring up a docking port junior for sure. So we know for a fact that we need to bring coupling, a docking port junior. I'm going to slap that guy up over here for right now. Then in here we need our joint airlock, which I'm going to use the inflatable airlock for that. And do we want to just have the inflatable airlock? What does that look like when it's expanded? Like that? Okay, so in that case, no. Because if we look at this image of the actual Quest Joint Airlock, it's this component and this component. This is the airlock itself. This is what it's attached to, and then it's actually docked in over here. So we'll want some sort of thing like that. So what do we want that to be? Something like an RCS tank? Actually, what is it in reality? That's something we should probably figure out. So it consists of two segments: the equipment lock that stores spacesuits and equipment, and the crew lock from which astronauts can exit into space. Okay. So in that case, it's basically like storage space, right? Functionally. So we'll need to have a docking port at this. Actually, we won't need to have a docking port at this end, but we would. We can use this docking port junior for that. So specifically, what we would do is we would put this here, and we can reuse this later on. So we can put that there. Then we would want to have some sort of a container or a crew facility. It would need to be fairly small. So perhaps we would just go with like an RCS tank, or just like a storage facility, like a service bay of some sort. Like a 1.25 meter service bay is actually about the right size. So something along the lines of that, and then our inflatable airlock would end up going on right about there. This is actually too small, isn't it? So the service bay would actually need to be a 2.5 meter service bay, perhaps. Because it's really much smaller. We'll add in some adapters here, just to make it feel a little bit better. So you're a little too small as well. It's this guy. That would go here, and then we would have this adapter going like that. And then that would further adapt down to be like this. And then we'd put in the inflatable airlock. Actually, no, this is the wrong size. Just put the inflatable airlock like that, I guess. Sure, that works. So we can do something kind of like that. Now, obviously, this is clipping in, and that's going to be a bit of a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of this, if we grab here, we could put all of this on an extendable arm. Now, this is probably going to rattle around. We're going to need to be a little careful about that. But we can put this in like so, extend it out like that, and that just gives us a little bit of distance, right? So that's all well and good. That would be our Quest Joint Airlock. Now, I want to make sure that we have some repair kits in here. So we're going to bring some EVA repair kits. We're going to simply bring 4 of those. We already have some on the station, but we're going to bring some ourselves and get it done that way. That'll be phenomenal. Does this even need to be extended? The answer is no, it doesn't. Maybe instead of using a hydraulic cylinder here, maybe we should just simply use something like a modular girder segment. That may not be the worst of ideas. It's a lot more structurally stable. So then it would be something like that. That could definitely work. And I'm going to call this the Quest Joint Airlock. That is not how I spell. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Now we need a couple of replacement hinges, right? And these are the smaller hinges, so I believe they're the G00s. And so we're just going to put them in here and here. They should be motorized, and they are, so that's perfect. And then the question becomes, how are we going to be attaching this guy? Honestly, we're going to have to detach it here. And then bring it in from this port, right? Right. Do we have space for this? Is something we need to actually ask. Because this thing is pretty wide, and we could run into, with the Unity module, the same thing that we did previously. I suspect we will. So one thing we may actually have to do is bring it up like this. So the docking port would go on here, if I can get it to actually snap on. That is not where I want that to go. It was on here previously. There we go. And then the modular girder segment, just to put in a bit of a spacer there. That may end up being necessary here. Another thing that we could do is a big adapter here. So that would be something kind of like this guy or like this guy. That's way too big. Yeah, I don't like that concept. Even the Rockamax brand adapter, I don't like the size of it. I think it's way too big. This is maybe a doable thing here though. So we add in a little bit of spacing by doing this. That's a theoretical option. And then from there, we can even take it down a little bit further. Like that. Then we could either have the modular girder segment here or not have the modular girder segment here, depending on how it's needed. We can bring the modular girder segment just in case it is, in fact, required. But it may not be. So we don't necessarily know, but at least this way, we know that we have some options. Okay, I like it. Now, we are going to need another docking port junior, right? So we definitely do need that. The other thing that we could hypothetically do here is we could put a docking port junior out over on here. This is probably not going to want to attach. Yeah, it's not going to want to attach. So I'm going to put it here. The idea was going to be that we would flip this around entirely. We could decouple it maybe, but I don't like that concept. So we just flip this around. We're going to have to grab it with our grab arm and completely flip it. So in theory, what this is going to end up meaning is we would want this guy to be, at a 90-degree angle, extended all the way out to about here. But unfortunately, as you can see, that's clipping in. So that would be a potential problem for sure for this actual deployment. So as far as how we would want to actually do that, that would get potentially problematic. Yeah, I think that we need to think about this deployment a little bit more. So I'm going to put the arm back to where it was. These spare parts will do for now, and we just need to think about how we're going to get this attached to the station, right? So at that point, the problem here is the inflatable airlock only has one attachment point. To that end, we could do something a little bit fancier. Or we could just not. And just do something along the lines of this, right? Just grab onto it like this. set the angling about here, traverse rate way, way down, and then just extend it out like that, grab it after the release, and then strut it in and dock it up like this. Well, we then rotate it using this servo and then dock it up. That is a possibility, so I think that's not a bad option. I think that's definitely our best way to do this at this point. We need to get this back to 0, and we'll get this guy at 0 and get this guy at 0. Okay, so that is, I think, a viable way to go about it. So for now, we're just going to stow the quest joint airlock like this. We are absolutely going to need to strut it down. So we're going to put in a strut here. Are we going to need more than one strut for this? I don't know. I don't think there's a huge amount of mass here, but we could certainly think about a strut like over here, or even a strut down here would probably do the trick. Yeah, that would probably do the trick. And then we have all of the components that we need to get this mission completed. So I think we save this and we launch this. Okay. We'll see where we are in relation to the ISS. That is, of course, a fairly significant inclination that we need to hit. And we don't really want to launch into an equatorial and then swap over. We don't have the delta V for that, to be honest. So we'll just do as we have been, and that'll be reasonably okay. So let's hop on in here as soon as this gets loaded. There we go. And we're going to set the ISS as our target. We are currently pretty far off, so it's going to be over here where our next encounter is. So we'll just have to warp forward a bit, and that's reasonably fine. Okay, we're coming up on it. We're not quite there yet. About nowish. Okay. And we're going northward here, so we're going to go to surface up. There we go. Throttle up. And off we go. Cool. So we know we're going to be going to like 67 degrees here, right? So we can definitely rotate around to about here-ish. Overshot it a bit, but there we go. About here-ish. And we'll see how that ends up going in terms of our ascending-descending node. We may have to make some corrections to it, but for now, this will hopefully be fine. I mean, we're definitely going to have to make some corrections, but we want to just kind of eyeball it for now, right? So this is going up in the ascending node, but since we're just getting verticality right now, that's not shocking. In fact, that's exactly expected. So that's not going to be any real concerns at this moment. We just want to get as much verticality as we can. And then once we hit about, I do like it at about 30 to 40 kilometers for our apoapsis height heading over. I think that that's pretty decent. It gets us through the atmosphere, which is where our danger points are for getting rid of the solid fuel boosters. And that allows us to drop a lot of mass. So that's absolutely great. So that's 40 kilometers there. We're going to start going up and over towards the horizon. We can actually see that we are going to need to be like out over here. Okay, that's doable. That is absolutely doable. We'll just park right about here. We're going to lose our SRBs, and that is, of course, going to tip us way down here. And Smart SAS is trying to pull us back to up, which is not actually where we want to go here. So we're just going to bring this right on back over to the horizon. Phenomenal. We're not actually trying to launch into an encounter here. We're just trying to set up the overall inclination correctly. So we can see we're now only 18 degrees off. That's much, much better. Much, much better. Apoapsis height is currently about 70 kilometers. We're going to continue burning here as long as we're in atmosphere. Once we are out of atmosphere, that is when we're going to start looking at ditching our SRBs. And we just need to get some speed here. I'm just trying to put us right on the horizon here. It's not really wanting to go there, but that's okay. So we're about 12 degrees off on our inclination. Not so bad so far. Not so bad at all. So we've got about 8 kilometers left in our burn time here, and then we're going to be ditching our SRBs. I want to check in on our fuel here. Looks good. No issue on the fuel count there. 68 kilometers. Excellent. And there's space. So now we're going to kill rot. We're going to ditch these. Warp until we're clear. There we go. Cool. Now we can add a maneuver here and get ourselves circularized. Approximately like that-ish. We're going to be a little off on the inclination, looks like, but that is reasonably fine. We're going to head over to the node, and we're going to be burning here in about 25 seconds. Now, this is not super... I wasn't super accurate about the circularization, but it's good enough. We just want to be in an orbit, right? That is our current goal right now, is make an orbit. It doesn't really matter what orbit that is. From here, we can definitely tweak it. Although, I am going to move out over this direction and tweak our inclination just that extra little bit here, if this is helping. Although it doesn't appear to be. Okay. So we'll just make our way back over to the node. I just wanted to check that and see how it felt. We'll pin this open so we can keep an eye on our fuel in our big orange tank. And we're just targeting an orbit here. So let's make this right on over. It's also interesting that our target point is so close here. We might be able to get a reasonable encounter fairly quickly here, which would be great. We do need a couple hundred more meters per second to get into orbit here, and that is indeed the goal. This offset thrust, it makes things very awkward here. No doubt about that. But that's an orbit, and it's good enough. So we're going to definitely do that. We've got a little bit of delta V left in here. So we're 8.7 degrees off on the inclination. That's not so bad. So we can head on over to the ascending node here and bring it this direction. Okay, timing is a little bit off here. So it would need to be more like this. Okay, 346.7 meters per second. In theory, we can make that happen with our big orange tank. So I like it. Let's orient for that. There we go. And let's warp. And we're just going to be looking for an encounter after we get our inclination fixed, is going to be the idea. So we get into this final orbit here, and then we'll transition to internal fuel. So that'll be great. We do have a little bit of fuel that we end up throwing away every time doing this, but it's really not very much. So 30 seconds, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Okay. So we're chasing this inclination on out of here. Of course, it's awkward with the offset thrust. No doubt about that. Very awkward with the offset thrust. But this is probably close enough. Okay, how are we doing? Inclination is 0.0 to 0.1. It's very close. Okay, I throttled us up a tiny bit there, and it's better. There we go. That should do the trick. So we're back on Kilrot, and we've got a little bit of fuel here, 129 meters per second, but we are going to ditch our big orange tank at this point, and we are going to reorient. What? We don't have an engineer? That's different. Okay. Why did it not put an engineer in here? It always puts Jeb, Bill, Bob when they're available, and they were. That's weird. I don't suppose we left Bill on the ISS. Let's go check that real quick. I don't think we did. I've never had the problem where it doesn't put Jeb, Bill, Bob in and then grab probably Valentina as the next priority. Oh, Bill is still on the ISS. Okay. So that's going to make things awkward for us. We can't reconfigure then. Yeah, that's my own fault, but Bill is still on the ISS. He forgot to get back in the shuttle, I guess. That is 100% my fault. So we will switch back over here. The question is, how are we going to deal with this? And the answer is, well, I'm going to massively thrust limit our engine. And we'll have to just go like this. It's not going to be great. I'm going to thrust limit us down to 4%, like 5% here. And actually, I'm going to thrust limit us down to like 1%. So that hopefully our gimbaling can counteract the offset of it. That would be ideal. 1% thrust does, of course, mean we're going to have long burns. But hopefully it'll still be fine. So let's look for an encounter with the ISS here. We just need an encounter. And it needs to be close enough that Bill can come and reconfigure us for orbital flight. That would be the idea. So that would be sometime around here. Okay, that looks reasonable. It's going to be a 6-minute burn at this current at this current setup. But we're going to warp on over. We're going to have to do a couple of orbits here. We can still have reasonable thrust, right? And we don't need a huge amount of delta V to get there from here. It's just going to be a little awkward, and we'll see how this ends up going. Hopefully it'll be reasonable and get us close enough. We just need to be close enough to bring Bill over, right? That's all we need here. So, 20 seconds. 10 seconds. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. And hopefully this is slow enough that the gimbaling can offset this offset. We'll see. We're going to physics warp here. This is going to be a pretty long burn, and in fact, I'll see you guys at the end of the burn, and we'll see how it does. Hopefully it's okay. See you in just a moment. Wait a second. I forgot. Wait, it didn't take the pause button hit there. I definitely didn't forget to hit pause. It just didn't take it. Okay, that's exciting. I apologize for that pause, and we'll be right back in a moment. Okay, so it definitely took the pause button on the unpause there. Excellent. I know I pressed the button because it switched over to the big orange tank, and it definitely messed things up a little bit because this forgot to be at the node and it turned off the thrust and it was a whole thing. But regardless, we got there, and apparently OBS just decided not to pause for a bit there. So again, I apologize for that, but here we are at the end of this burn, and hopefully it's okay. Now, because we're only at 1% thrust here, we're going to have to do our braking a little bit differently than usual. And yeah, we can see that this is moving quite a lot. That's deeply unsurprising. I'm just going to chase this node a little bit manually here. Okay. This should be good enough. So how are we doing on that encounter? Yes, 14.1 kilometers apart is fine. So at this point, what I'd like to do is I would like to bring these up to about 10% thrust and hope that our gimbaling can handle that, because we're going to need to do some corrections and make our way in, and we need to be at a thrust level that we're used to. So hopefully this will be okay. We'll find out. So we're going to warp to about here before we do our first here. Our inclination is actually off by half a degree right now, which is interesting. But I want to go into target mode, 400 meters per second. This is because we are significantly far away from the target right now. So I want to push this node, right? Yeah, we need to push the retrograde node. We definitely want to be on the retrograde side here. Yeah, 430 meters per second. Absolutely. We want to... Okay. Yep, we actually cannot hold this. So we're going to have to bring these down to like 3% thrust. This is going to be spicy. Okay. 3% thrust. Hopefully we can hold this. The answer is we kinda can. Cool. So we're going to have to do a pretty lengthy burn here because we can't... Yeah, we can hold 3% thrust. We're going to have to do a pretty lengthy burn here and bring this into the station like this, which is certainly non-ideal. At this point, we should be seeing our relative speed decreasing and our separation also decreasing, which is the goal. That is absolutely the goal. And we're just going to be parked here for a bit. We need to bring down this relative speed, which is a little higher than we're used to for sure. And I think that's just due to the length of the burn previously. I'm 99% certain about that. But things definitely got a little spicy here. Definitely a little bit spicy. So we are definitely going to be burning here because we need to be slowing down relative to the target. And we can see this is not going down by 1 second per second because we are decreasing our relative speed. So that's absolutely great. For the moment, I'm just keeping my eye on our positioning here. Ooh, that really wants to drift off up this way. I mean, that does make sense that it really wants to drift off up here. But we're just correcting our separation right now. We are slowing down relative to the target, so that is all good. But the separation is what we're really focused on right now. I want to get that down within about 2 kilometers for right now. Once we do get that down within about 2 kilometers, then we're going to hop over to relative velocity minus mode. Because we absolutely need to be killing our relative speed here. In fact, we probably want to be thinking about doing that very, very shortly. That said, we have dropped this by like 200 meters per second. Noted. How's that descending node doing? It's improving, which is expected. So we're at about 3 kilometers right now for our separation. I'm not going to try to get us too close here. So at 2 kilometers, we're going to head over, and we're just going to do relative velocity down. So we're still going to be a little bit off here, right? So 1.6 kilometers off. We can do additional correction here after we get our relative speed down to something a little bit more manageable, but the main problem right now is that the time to arrive here is still going down. We just have really low thrust to weight because we were unable to deal with our engines facing the wrong way, right? So separation is currently going up, which is reasonably expected. We can position right up over here or so and just work on bringing that back down. But the main thing that I'm watching here is this time to intercept. As long as that's going down, we know that we need to be burning right now. If it starts to go up, then we know that we've overburned a little bit. So at this point, I'm just still positioning us for a little bit of correction here. We're down below 100 meters per second for our relative speed. So that's very good. That means that these corrections are going to start to have more and more and more effect, right? But we're down to 1.6 kilometer separation at this moment. 1.5, 1.4. This is now going up, so we know that we're overburning a little bit here, and we're going to need to coast. But I'm just keeping us burned here until we see this correction get approximately right. I'm going to bring it down to about half a kilometer. So 0.7, 0.6, and 0.5. We'll call that good for right now. So we're going to coast a bit, and then we're going to need to further correct this, of course. But half a kilometer is certainly close enough, and we can get this reconfigured. But honestly, at this point, we kind of don't need to. My main concern would be aerodynamics as we come in for a landing. But this definitely got a little spicy. So at this point, we're pretty much going to have to put a cut in once we get here, right? So that's reasonably fine. Let's warp forward a little bit closer to about 30 seconds out. There we go. And now I'm going to commence a burn about here. And we are just bringing this right on in. Okay, relative velocity minus now, please. We're just going to rotate right on over. And there we go. We're moving at about 5 meters per second right now, and we can see this shifts on us as we go. So it's going to be a little awkward, but let's warp in a bit. And yeah, we're not going to be super duper close, which we expect. We could get closer with RCS at this point. That would be a viable thing. But let's just continue to very gently bring this down. And actually, I want to be up over here, correcting our trajectory a little bit. So let's go to kill rot. And we're just slightly correcting our trajectory. Very slightly. Okay, it's wanting to push it out this way for the moment. Okay. Oh, I went inside instead. Okay, I was trying to kill the throttle, but I managed to go inside. Yeah, we can see here, this is the effect of our offset thrust. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop over to here. We're going to have Bill EVA from the station, since apparently he decided to stay here. He's a stowaway on the station, and he is going to head out to the shuttle. Excellent, because he needs to reconfigure this thing. No doubt about it. It's his responsibility. Get in here, Bill. Down a bit, we're going to have to start braking soon. But over we head. So, I mean, we managed to get here without an engineer. That is pretty cool, actually. I'm relatively happy with that. But it was not the prettiest, that's for sure. It would have been a lot better if we had an engineer. But we didn't. Okay, down a bit. There we go. Grab on. Cool. So, from here, of course, we're going to reconfigure this for spaceflight. 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can't escape your job that easily, Bill. Okay, so now we're going to hop back over here. We are reconfigured for spaceflight, but we should anchor it down, just to make sure. So we'll do... if we can get in here. This is a lot laggier when we're by the station like this, which does make sense, but it's certainly much more exciting, shall we say. 2, 3, and finally, where's the fourth one go? Up over here. 4. There we go. So now Bill can head back to his precious station. He is done reconfiguring the shuttle, and where is the station from here? There it is. Okay, so we're just going to head right on back to the station with Bill. We actually don't have room in the shuttle for Bill, so that's okay. He is going to have a lot of work to do over here, though, and it is past time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we're going to have Bill do some reconfiguration. We definitely need to be braking here. I'm going to be overshooting a bit, so I tried to not impact the station. Didn't actually overshoot, surprisingly, so that's okay. We're going to have Bill do some reconfiguration here, and that is going to be a little bit of repair work as well. And we'll install the Quest joint airlock, which is ultimately going to end up going into, I believe, this port here. I'll have to double check that, but I believe that's the port that we're intending to put it in. For now, you can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Shadow Wolf, Andy McGar, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12 UK, Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.